Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Liam Jenkins and welcome to another episode of Eagles Training Camp Diaries. If you're new to the channel, make sure you leave a like and hit that subscribe button. We have got some intensity to drill into you today, and that is exactly what Nick Sirianni was doing to one player in particular earlier this afternoon. But we're going to get to that. First, let's start off with the injury updates. If you're an Alex Singleton stan like myself, today's a pretty good day. He's been out of action due to being placed on the COVID list and made his official return to practice. And while he wasn't actually involved in team drills just yet, Andrew Adams was the safety who was also placed on the COVID list, and he actually made a little bit of an impact. You will see making a thumping tackle early on, so that was really good. The main thing with regards to Alex Singleton and the COVID list today is the fact that Davion Taylor is now week to week with a quad injury, and that could not have come at a worse time. Taylor has been really ramping things up this summer, drawn a lot of praise from Jonathan Gannon and all of the Eagles coaches for that matter, but unfortunately this quad injury may set him back somewhat. Now, we know Taylor had limited experience coming out of college, that he was this freak athlete with incredible upside but very low floor. He needed a big summer after playing less than 40 defensive snaps in year number 1, and he was actually having it. And with Alex Singleton out of the way, he was in line to at least show coaches that he could be worthy of a potential starting role. But now the coin has flipped around. With Taylor now sidelined on week to week, Alex Singleton gets to tag in and show what he can do and that he isn't going anywhere. This may not seem that important, but Alex Singleton only signed a tender this past year. He's not around long term just yet, and Taylor is of course only in year 2 of his rookie contract, so the Eagles do have a little bit more of an obligation to try and groom that potential. So not a great day to be Davion Taylor. Well, let's just hope he gets back on the field as soon as possible. But for Singleton, dream scenario, he can get in there, show what he's worth, and maintain that starting role alongside Eric Wilson. Also saw Ryan Kerrigan coming back to action today shortly after picking up a hand injury, but this was a maintenance day. The veterans were pretty much out of action, so Darius Slay, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, all of those guys took a day off, and it's understandable. It was the first full day of pads on Tuesday. It was a 100-minute practice, the most intense by far. It just makes sense. Condition those guys. They don't have to be there. They've got their starting roles. Just take it easy on them. There's more than can be said for Jalen Reagor, who on a second team rep today didn't perform as expected and got absolutely grilled by one Eagles coach, only for Nick Sirianni to do exactly the same thing, to a point where pretty much every beat writer noticed how intense it was. And I, for one, really liked this for a couple of reasons. Number one is that everyone's assumed that Nick Sirianni is this wholesome, lovely guy that has a lot of energy, that maybe gets a little bit nervous in press conferences, and there was a report that he might get walked over for being too nice and kind of the Eagles play thing. With that kind of move, with that aggression, that passion, that intensity to hold someone accountable for not doing well in a rep, it instills that level of, oh, that could be me, amongst every other player, that he won't be walked over, that he does expect a certain level of effort as well as a certain level of execution. That's a great thing for Nick Sirianni. And when you look back at last year, with the complacency this Eagles team showed pretty much from week 1 through to week 17, this is a nice thing to see. The one element all fans wanted to see last year was the team being held accountable, was someone to step up and say, yeah, it's on me, and then take action, not just say, yeah, guys, it starts with me, and then the same thing happens 6 weeks in a row. We might finally see that with Nick Sirianni and company, and I'm, for one, I'm all for it. I also like it because I understand Jalen Reagor's had a tough year. He lost a very close friend. I couldn't even imagine what that's like to go through. He also had a pretty disappointing rookie campaign, will forever be intertwined with Justin Jefferson as a result, and now comes into a season where the team also drafted Devonta Smith. I can understand why mentally he might be rocked. We already know he's not been exactly the hardest of skinned people when it comes to social media, and that's been another qualm. And I wrote an article about that earlier in this offseason, saying that let's just be aware here that Reagor's clearly going through something, whether it's mental health wise or in his personal life, and he's not dealing with it appropriately. It was later revealed obviously what had happened, but then he shows up out of shape for the conditioning test. That's strike one for Nick Sirianni, and I'm sure the Eagles coaching staff are going to want to get the best out of him. They're going to bend around him, they're going to support him in every aspect that they can, but at some point, it's training camp. The guy's competing for a roster spot. You've got John Hightower catching 40-yard bombs down the field. You've got Kes Watkins scoring touchdowns on screens. Travis Fulgham is doing well, and then on the other side of the field, Jalen Reagor really struggling. First round pick or not, he's got to do something, and I think Nick Sirianni is absolutely right to try and not only light the fire under his belly, but do so for every other player on that roster as well. For Jalen Hurts, it was apparently a topsy-turvy day. He threw a pick to rookie Jacoby Stevens, and apparently it went right to him, but then of course threw that 40-yard bomb to John Hightower. He went 3 for 5 in the red zone, a pair of touchdowns to Dallas Goedert, which is probably a promising sign. I wrote an article earlier today talking about tight end usage and how it wasn't what Eagles fans would hoped it would be in Indianapolis in comparison to what we're used to in Philadelphia, and that Sirianni has got to try and find a balance, and we know he wants to mold his offense around those playmakers. Both Ertz and Goddard are on the same roster, so he's got to capitalize on that and make the most of it. The more that Dallas Goedert is catching touchdowns, the more Zach Ertz is stealing the spotlight at practice, the more likelihood we do see more familiarity just shaken up a bit, as opposed to what felt like in Indianapolis a real minimized tight end exposure. It was very much about the backfield and the wide receivers, and if I'm honest, I expected the same here, but with this sort of camp from both players, maybe there is a chance of a minor tight end resurgence. And after a couple of big days where Zach McPherson ended up batting away 4 passes, he ends up starting at CB1 while Darius Slade takes a rest day. Now importantly, this was over Michael Jacquet. Now what does that tell us? It tells us that the coaching staff are seeing some value here in their rookie, that he isn't just a nickel corner, that maybe, just maybe, he does have a future outside, and they're trialing him against outside corners. So I absolutely love that. I think that he does have a very high upside. I was very impressed with his tape out of Texas Tech. Was he realistically going to compete for a starting role straight away? Saw the idea floated by one of our writers, Chris Infante, that we could see Steven Nelson in the slot and Zach McPherson outside. Now I don't know how that would work. I know Brian Cameron, our other writer, is going to follow up on that with an article very shortly, so stay tuned. But I like seeing McPherson get some exposure. It's cool to see. And that just about does it, guys, for another day of Training Camp Diaries. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. Drop your comments down below. I'll see you soon.